Hey everyone, thanks for being on the Team Fit and Free Zoom for September. My name is Sarah and I am very, very excited for our speaker tonight. So first off, welcome to some coaches. I see some new faces for your first Zoom. Every month we have a Team Fit and Free Zoom. It generally features someone within the team or maybe someone without the team, sharing an interesting topic. And I'm really excited about tonight's topic, the science of coaching. Kind of was inspired by this book, Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. It's something that a lot of the diamonds on Team Fit and Free started reading this past month. And he talks so much about the science of your brain and the stuff, like your interactions with people and what kind of chemicals that produces and then what kind of outcome that gives you in your life. And Lindsey is a scientist. And so she was like geeking out over it and super excited. And we talked more about it and how it really I feel like in coaching, we are like dealers of endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, like we're dealing this stuff. And this is like the kind of like chemicals that people want in their body. And so she can go even further with it. So she's our special guest tonight, Lindsey Mullenbach. She is from Iowa. And there's kind of an Iowa rivalry on the team if you haven't noticed yet. And she's not a Hawkeye. She's the other one. I know that. And, right? You are a Hawkeye. Shoot. Okay, yes. Lauren's the other one, her sister Lauren. Speaking of Lauren, Lindsey has been a coach since December of 2014. Her sister Lauren asked her to join her. Lauren had done PIO and wanted to share the program with others, and so that's when Lindsey started. Guess what? Lindsey's going to be a 1-star diamond tomorrow. Congratulations. That just means her team's growing, and she's doing it. She's making things happen. So she is also a wife, and she's got 2 kids, Carson and Madison, and they actually live on an acre. They built this property, this beautiful property with this intent to build their dream home, and I know that coaching is helping her do that. And also, here's what makes her so credible for this call, is she's a scientist. She works in a hospital laboratory analyzing fluids to help with diagnosis and treatment of patients. But she also leads the internship program there and teaches a lot of students. And she also is the safety manager and on the wellness team for the hospital. So she's like involved in all sorts of aspects in the hospital, but trained as a scientist to study this stuff. So Lindsey's prepared a nice presentation for us. I'm going to turn it over to her. And then if you want to just keep yourself muted, if you have background noise, you don't have to worry about it. But I hope you have your notebooks out because I think this is going to be some interesting stuff. So Lindsey, thanks so much for preparing all of this.
Yeah, thanks for the great intro.
You're welcome. I'm just
okay, so as Sarah
take it away.
Okay, so I'm going to share screen here. I'm a total nerd and made a PowerPoint. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to spend the first 10 or 15 minutes kind of going over the 4 main happy chemicals that we learned about in Leaders Eat Last. And one other chemical that I'm also going to talk about is the pesky counterpart to the happy chemicals, and that's cortisol. And that's kind of what initiated my response to this because I actually did my college research project on exercise and cortisol. So I'll get into that later. But the last portion of the Zoom, I'm actually going to share a couple of examples from challenge groups, from challengers, and also coaches, and kind of apply the 4 happy chemicals to kind of get you thinking about, how what we do is it really correlates, like what Sarah was saying, is that we are like giving this stuff out, and that is, our job, and we can do that. So what we're going to do is go over the happy chemicals. So what's super cool is we have these non-intellectual processes going on in our bodies all the time. So they're happening without us knowing. It's all responses to what is going on around us. And our body tells us with chemicals that we're doing a good job and tells us, hey, you're doing what you need to do to survive. And also you're creating a community, keep doing that kind of stuff. And what's crazy is when it first started, when we first think back to the caveman era, that's what a lot of this basis comes from, is all of these chemicals. And we still have them now as we've evolved into more like developed people. But yeah, so we are going to talk about endorphins and dopamine. And so in theory, those are more of the selfish happy chemicals. They're more focused on like yourself. And so, and then the last two that we're going to talk about are serotonin and oxytocin. And those are about developing relationships. And you need all of these in order to be happy. You need to have, go towards your own selfish motives, but then also creating a community to make you feel a part of something. So we're going to dive in to the 4 happy chemicals here. So we're going to start with endorphins. So we're going to call these the pain relief chemicals so we can remember them later when we start talking more in depth about them. But what are they? So endorphins are our natural pain relief. They're like an opiate that our body gives us when we're experiencing physical pain. We can also get them, here just a minute. Oh, how do we get them? So we get them by experiencing any sort of physical pain. So this can be actual, like, you cut yourself. Or if you're doing a really hard workout and it's like almost kind of painful, but yet you get that feeling of euphoria at the end, like that is endorphins. Laughing so hard that it hurts. Crying is another way. If you are feeling like you want to cry and you're really like panicky or wanting to freak out and then you let it out, that's actually like a physical release of tension. And so that is also a way that you can get endorphins. And then another nice thing about it is doing things that you enjoy actually releases endorphins as well. So that's like a natural happy feeling. So why do we want these? So in terms of strength and endurance in a painful situation, so for example, exercising, if you are, let's say if you're a firefighter and you run into a burning building and you're feeling the heat, that is what makes it so you're not actually feeling the heat. You are just going and doing your job, and it's more, you're just going in and doing that. And then also, it's our body's way of showing us what makes us physically happy. And so that's a really good way to indicate to yourself, whatever it is, my thing's chocolate. Chocolate really makes me feel good and it releases endorphins for me. So yeah. So we have our little caveman example. So way back in the day, the caveman, he had endorphins so that way he could run away from the saber-toothed tiger. And so if he's running through the woods and he's barefoot and he's stepping on rocks and sticks and all that stuff, he doesn't feel it because he's trying to outrun the saber-toothed tiger. So, animate there for you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about dopamine, and that is the second selfish chemical. So this is a feel-good feeling when we accomplish a goal, and that dose is received directly related to the size of the accomplishment. So let's say it's a super easy, quick goal that you can accomplish, you'll get a short little dose. But if it's something that's taking you forever and you've, worked really hard over a period of time, like each step that you go and you achieve little benchmark steps, you'll get a dose of dopamine. But then when you finally accomplish your goal at the end, you just get this like whammo bit of dopamine. So it's pretty cool. So how do we get it? Obviously, one way is to achieve a goal that you're working for. Envisioning yourself achieving a goal in your mind. We're very visual creatures in our mind. We can create something. And if you can see yourself in your mind doing it, you get a little dopamine hit. Another thing is writing down our goals, being specific and setting benchmarks. So, dream boards, vision boards, like all of that stuff, it's more than just, writing it down. You are getting a dose of dopamine. And if you see it constantly, it's a good reminder for you. So why do we want dopamine? What helps us working towards our goals, it's basically our body's way of saying, hey, keep doing that, whatever it is. Have you ever envisioned something in your mind and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to rock this? Like that is dopamine like surging through your veins. So the other bad side about dopamine is actually addictive. The behaviors we reinforce, we get little hits of dopamine, and they can be bad behaviors or good behaviors. And how I can correlate it to coaching is social media and newsfeed. So like if you're able, do you ever find yourself scrolling newsfeed on Facebook and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I just wasted like 30 minutes of my life because you're looking at other stuff instead of like actually doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're checking how many likes you get or how many comments you got on a post. Like that is dopamine derived like yeah, it's kind of, we repeat behaviors that know will give us a dose of dopamine. And so if you see people liking your stuff or commenting on your stuff, that gives you a dose of dopamine. So now we've talked about, oh yeah, I have my little anime here. Oops, where'd you go? Okay, so biological incentive for the caveman, let's say he's hungry and he wants to climb the tree to go get an apple. So he climbs up in the tree and gets an apple. And so he's going to have a little bit of dopamine because he was hungry and he set a goal to go get an apple. So now he has dopamine. So now we're going to move on to the unselfish chemicals, or the leadership, or the community chemicals. And the first one is going to be serotonin. So this one is a leadership chemical. So obviously as coaches, this one's really important to us, and we'll get more into detail on that. But what is it? So this is a sense of pride we feel when we think other people perceive us as a leader to them, and especially those people in our tribe. So for us, that would be, you know, our downline and our teammates. And this feeling also spreads to other people when they feel they've played a part in our success. So for example, when you graduate college, you know, your parents helped you get there, you know, supported you financially, or were there for you to help you study, all that stuff. So how do we get serotonin? So when you notice your influence on other people, and this is when you do something also you're proud of, and all of it is not in an arrogant way, it's just more you notice, you know, I'm definitely contributing to the team or society, and serving others for whom we're directly responsible. And so it's really important just to make sure that, you know, yeah, it's just serving others that we're responsible for and seeing yourself as a leader. So that's why we call it the leadership chemical. So why do we want it? I mean, obviously, if we're seen as a leader, that helps boost our own confidence, and it makes us feel like we've contributed and we've been accountable to our community, and it reinforces the bonds between people. It feels like they support us and we support them, and it just keeps going around and around. So as you're helping somebody else, they're going to help you, and it's really cool. So we have our little caveman here. So he goes out foraging and finds some berries and brings them back to the team. And everybody's really excited, so they clap for him. They're all excited because he's a leader. So now we're going to move on to oxytocin. So oxytocin is the love chemical, as you could call it. And this is the feeling of friendship and love and deep trust and empathy that you have for other people. So how do we get it? Being around people we trust or people we relate to. When we do something nice for someone or they do something nice for us. And what's really cool is if, for example, in the book that we read, Leaders Eat Last, the author gave an example of someone was walking in front of him, and this person, their bag opened up and some stuff fell out. So the author came up, picked up the stuff and gave it to that person. And the person's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Well, then somebody over, you know, that saw the whole thing happen came over and said, hey, that was really cool, way to go. And so anybody that sees someone else do something nice for someone else, they also get a dose of oxytocin. So do nice things for people. It's really cool. And then also another way to get it is through physical contact. So, you know, that's why kiddos love to snuggle with their parents, or, you know, that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get when you hug a friend or a family member, and why it's seen as it's like almost a contract of sorts. Like if you make a business deal with someone and you shake their hand, like that is just saying, yes, we're on the same page, and, you know, it's a sign of friendship. So why do we want oxytocin? So we feel a sense of belonging and acceptance, and it makes us social. And so when you tie everything all together, that just makes an all-around happy experience. You know, you have the endorphins, you have the dopamine, serotonin, and the oxytocin. And it's really important, like I said, to have the more selfish ones, because you have to go towards what makes you happy, but then also making sure that you're doing what you can for the greater good of your community, your team, whatever you need to do. So here's our little caveman. So he dropped this so we can't help him. So. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the pesky counterpart, and that would be cortisol. And this is what I did my research project on. So cortisol is It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's that internal sense that something is wrong, and it heightens our bodies to react to a possible danger, and that causes feelings of stress and anxiety. And how do we get it? Very clearly, being stressed out, it can be any type of stress, marriage stress, family stress, it can be at work, if you're driving home and somebody cuts you off, like that gives you an instant burst of cortisol. And obviously actual threats to your life. So if you're in a violent situation or if you're in a natural disaster of some sort, that also will release cortisol. So it's a good thing because it keeps us safe. That is your fight or flight response. If you've ever heard of that before, it's what would happen if you were in a stressful situation, how you would react. And if you've ever heard of like stories of like parents being in a car accident and a mom or a dad climbing out of the car and like lifting a car up, that is cortisol and endorphin working together to, give you superhuman powers, basically. So why is cortisol bad? So when we're exposed to high levels of cortisol all the time, it actually damages our bodies. Cortisol impacts the part of our brain that helps us with our rational thinking. And so basically we go into survival mode. So all those normal things that we do on a day-to-day basis that are non-essential, they go away and it's all instinct reactive. And so trying to rationalize something when you're under a constant state of like having cortisol in your system, that's when, you might come down with like depression or anxiety. And like my research project, we correlated it with post-traumatic stress disorder. And, it impacts your brain. And what's interesting, other animals have this same setup. They have cortisol release to kind of give them an instinctual, like, okay, so there's a lion coming at me, now I need to run. As humans, we're able to actually like rationalize it and try to figure it out, or we try to anyways, and that's when we kind of get into a cycle where we're like, oh, I can't figure this out. And so then you kind of like release more cortisol because you're stressed out because you can't figure out, well, why can't I figure this out? And so it's just kind of a cyclical thing. And it messes with our normal body functions. Like I said, it shuts everything off that doesn't need to be functioning right now, and including that rational part of your brain. And then, it's all instinct. So if somebody comes at you and says something that, on a normal day wouldn't bother you, but if you're in one of those, if you have a lot of cortisol going and you're really stressed out, they might say something and you might snap at them or, cry or something just because, your rational functioning is not there because you're so stressed. And the other thing is it inhibits the release of oxytocin, and that's the community happy chemical. And so it will make you even feel more isolated because you're not able to connect with people. So it's really kind of a crazy thing, in terms of like stress. You think caveman, they probably needed that to outrun your saber-toothed tiger so that they would survive. But, now we don't generally have those types of situations as often. And so the little stresses that we experience in life, and sometimes those even, it's not medium stresses, they stress us out more than what they need to because we don't have that external stimulus that actually would like be a harm to us. So why does this all matter? So we have a cure to help people live happier, healthier lives through coaching. And I just want to share a little bit about our senior research project this is what kind of made me geek out a little bit when I started reading all this. So my senior research project, we took inactive females that were biology majors because as a biology major, I knew they were going through a very stressful course load. And they were inactive females, they didn't exercise at all, and we actually put them on an exercise regimen. So we measured their cortisol levels right before the program, and then we had them walk 6 weeks, and they walked 3 times a week, and each time we measured their cortisol levels. And then we also took 3 weeks of post-exercise collections to see what the lasting effects were. We didn't run any test results until we were all the way done with the study. And it was really cool what we found. Every participant had decreased levels, every single one of them. Not all of them were like marked, like really a significant decrease, but all of them went down. The two that we found most interesting was that when we did the post collection, so after they were done with their exercise, 3 weeks after that, we still kept tracking their cortisol levels to see what the long-lasting effect was. And some of them had long-lasting effects, like their cortisol levels stayed down through the 3-week post period when we measured. Others, their cortisol levels jumped up almost immediately. And so we correlated that with those were the type of people that would probably benefit from exercise as a way to help them relieve their stress from their, from being a biology major or whatever. So it was really cool. And then I got to thinking, like, after I started doing a little bit of research into this stuff, I was like, we didn't even correlate it because these gals, they actually walked together as a group and they were walking and talking. And so I didn't even think, we didn't do anything with the other happy chemicals, but like oxytocin and serotonin, like them being together and just walking and talking and just sharing their day and having that community. Like, I almost felt like I should message my senior advisor and be like, hey, I have another idea for you to correlate with. But yeah, so it's really cool. And I think, exercise, even clearly based on this, it releases endorphins and dopamine, and it keeps our cortisol levels normal. And our challenge group, they give participants a sense of community, and so that's where you get your serotonin and oxytocin. And so it's cool. I mean, there's really a science to what we're doing. And so now we're going to transition and talk about how this correlates with challengers, and be thinking as we go through, maybe for yourself, like experiences that you've had with your challengers and how maybe you could apply it next time. The different chemicals that we're going to talk about and how you would handle a situation. So in terms of challengers, so they feel stressed due to not having enough time to work out, having a bad day, week, month, year, lifetime of like poor eating, feeling overwhelmed with life, afraid to share their feelings with the group. That's all cortisol. And then we have these wonderful 4 happy chemicals that we can share with them. And now that we know that the impact that cortisol has on the mind, all of those, what we would call excuses, are really just things that we need to work with and work around in order to get them doses of the happy chemicals. And it probably would take multiple exposures in order for that to happen, in order for them to get to a happy place and feeling comfortable. So, So in the following slides, I'm going to give a few examples of some challengers. The first one is one from our August group. She actually shared this in our August challenge group, and I asked for permission to share this with her because it was very raw and real. And yeah, so this is what she posted. She said, I'm told over and over again by my coach that I can come here for some reassurance, motivation, and so on with no judgment. I'm not one to usually get personal like this, but I can't take it anymore. I've failed. I've wanted to start and haven't. I have my Shakeology on the counter, 21 Day Fix DVD in my player, yet I haven't touched either one. And this is about, I think this is like halfway through the challenge, and she hadn't touched any of it. When I first talked to my coach, I was excited. I want this so badly it hurts. It's just that my motivation and self-control, I have no self-control. I don't get it. I wake up every morning and tell myself, this is it. I'm going to start today, and then nothing. I'm trying to find that initial oomph, my motivator, my why. She wants to have that transformation, wow, and she just really, really wants this. I'm the heaviest I've ever been, including during pregnancy. Stepping on the scale sickens me. She doesn't want to go out into public unless she's wearing her yoga pants. Last week, her father-in-law told her 9-year-old daughter that her mom was getting fat and that she had a large butt. And you wouldn't think this would, she was concerned because she's like, you would think this would motivate me to be like, okay, now let me show you. It actually made her feel worse. And yeah, and so it was just a really powerful experience she just posted this in the middle of the group. And what was really, I thought was mind-blowing is that, the challengers, the coaches obviously stepped in and started saying things, but the challengers just showered her with love. Like they said, my bag of Shaco is sitting on the counter too. I have 2 more unopened boxes. It's just the feeling of love that she got from these people. This person said, I found out I crossed the 200-pound mark in my physical. I can't seem to find that motivation, but I'm not giving up. You know, maybe we had a hard time making ourselves a priority. Somebody else said, one day it just clicked. I began making small changes, and then over time it finally became a habit. Think of Shakeology as a treat, not as a meal replacement or punishment. Start each day with writing down a positive statement about yourself. You have not failed. Life is about learning as you go. Appreciate and celebrate every next step. Thank you for sharing. I struggle too. And so, I mean, if you can imagine how scary it was for her to, one, post that, but then to have all these other people that some of them she knew, some of them she didn't, you know, just super powerful. I remember like almost crying. She posted that and I was like, oh my goodness. So this is a great example of creating a safe environment where she felt it was okay to share without being judged. And she released a lot of endorphins here because for her it was probably very, very scary. And she felt embarrassed and a lot of tension about this, but felt she needed to share. And the overwhelming compassion and relatability that was in the responses was absolutely insane. So that would be your oxytocin in this example. And I just remember feeling the surge of energy as I read through all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, like that. I mean, immediately when Sarah said to, you know, find examples of challengers, and like this one immediately came to my mind because, I mean, I remember sitting there and just like my heart was pounding. And, you know, the people who shared their struggles and gave her tips on how to overcome them because they've achieved it, you know, that would be serotonin and dopamine. And so, like, to me, this was a really cool example. What's awesome is she has a really good coach. I mean, we're all really good coaches, but I think the saddest part with this one is, like, her father-in-law is talking to her that way, and she's already talking that way in her own mind. And so, like, who do you think she's going to believe? Her coach telling her through a Facebook message, hey, you're beautiful, you're worth it, keep working. Or her father-in-law that she sees, you know, in person that says, hey, you're fat and your butt is huge. Like, that was, to me, like, absolutely heartbreaking. And that's the kind of thing as coaches that we're trying to, like, overcome. And so, yeah, so she's still in our challenge group, so it's really good. I think this would be a, you know, this is good for her, and she's been posting a lot on her own social media, and yeah, so it's really good. So like I said, this is like the type of mind games that we're trying to overcome to help other people be happy, like our challengers. So I also have the next example that I have is actually a little bit more subtler, and it was kind of a fun one. I was chatting with one of my coworkers. She's actually a coach, and I was telling her about the Zoom, and I was telling her kind of what the, like, topic was about, so then she got all sciencey with me too, and she had this fun example, but it's very relatable. So the second example is, she said, oh my gosh, okay, so I go home and I make a pound of brownies because my husband wants me to make him brownies. And she's like, okay, I tell myself I'm just going to have a sliver of one piece, but then I have another sliver, and then I have another, and by that time I have no idea, I've probably eaten a whole row of brownies. She's like, I know I shouldn't do it. Why do I do it? And so we kind of got down to the nitty-gritty of it. And what it is you're getting that little hit of dopamine and endorphin. You know, you're getting that little instant satisfaction of tasting something, you know, a treat. And then for me, chocolate is an endorphin because it's something I love. So it's going to, you know, keep reinforcing that behavior, and that's why you can't stop. And then you get mad at yourself for eating more than you planned. So then that's cortisol. So then that's going to knock down the other happy chemicals. And you just keep eating more brownies. It's frustrating. I don't know if I'm the only one that has that problem, but yeah, thinking brownies. So now we're going to go through, you know, how can you help a challenger overcome this? So for dopamine, you can help them set a realistic goal for them. So portioning out treats. I do that a lot, where I'll just, you know, I'll say, you know, if I do 3 days of workouts, then I can have like a cookie or something. And earn a reward if you go so many days without eating a treat. So for me, like leggings and fun sports bras are a really good motivator. One idea also I had was putting a sticky note on the pan of brownies with a positive quote. That's a way to, like, look at that quote and be like, okay, you can do this. Even if it's something as simple as saying you can do this, you know, it might make you stop. You can also share a similar story from yourself that's very relatable. You get serotonin because you are seen as a leader, because obviously they're coming to you and asking you for help, but they get oxytocin because they feel like, oh, I'm not the only one that eats a whole row of brownies in one sitting. And then the last one I have, I don't know if you guys all do the Darren Daily, but I have one saved because it's like my favorite one of all time, and it's called Miracle Maker. And Oprah shared this with Darren. And basically the synopsis was like, he talked about you have to choose from right and wrong a lot of times. And let's say a chocolate cake is put in front of you. Well, if you say no to that, you are not getting anything, no reward at all. But if you actually do eat the cake or brownie, like you actually have like, you know, it tastes good, you get a reward. So that's like a little dopamine there, and just how hard it is to actually choose to do the right thing in that situation. And so she talks about, Oprah talked about, she calls it a miracle maker when she chooses the right path. And that is her way of giving herself a little bit of dopamine. And she also ended it with, it's a miracle that I didn't eat the cake. And so to me, that's one of my favorite ones to send to people. And I watch it like once a month because I love watching it. It's so funny. So, yeah. So how about us as coaches? How does this all apply to us as leaders, also as challengers in our own challenge groups? So our emotional tone and energy aren't dictated by life circumstances, and they aren't something we're blessed or saddled with at birth. As I'm fond of saying, the power plant doesn't have energy, it generates energy. So this is a quote that I found in The Charge, which is a book by Brendon Burchard. And to me, as coaches, you know, we understand what it is to, you know, share happiness. Like, we want to be a positive light on social media. We can take, even if we've had an absolutely horrible day, we share the positivity. Even if we share what was crappy about our day, we put a positive twist on it. And, you know, sometimes for all of us, it can be hard to muster up those happy feelings. And so now we're going to chat about how this all applies to us as coaches. So obviously, as coaches, we experience similar types of stresses through cortisol. But I think that some other ones that we have, you know, trying to be a leader, trying to, for me, working full time, being a coach, trying to get all the Zooms and being a good leader within my own team, and also showing up to all the other team pages, like that is an added stress, trying to take care of all your challengers. So we have a little bit of added stress. So what are some ways that we can kind of overcome some of this stuff? So for us, for endorphins, doing something outside of your comfort zone on social media. So like going live, doing something that helps release endorphins before you do something stressful. So like for me, conversations stress me out a little bit. They're not my jam. So I usually like read a book or do something, eat a brownie, do a happy dance, something fun that like lightens my mood a little bit, and then I dive in and it's fun. And then also making sure that you share what's stressing you out with your teammates or like your success partner. That's a really way to release that tension, and that way you get a little bit of endorphins. I mean, I don't know if anybody's ever done something scary. Like the first time I hosted a team call or team Zoom, like I was sweating profusely before I did it. And then I finally did it, and it's like, whew, you get this little feeling of euphoria at the end of it. So it's pretty cool. So for dopamine, obviously creating a vision board, being specific with it, and write down what dates you want to rank advance. Even if you don't hit it, it's no big deal. Doing a victory dance when you achieve something you've been working for. Notice the trend. Obviously, I think dancing is a good way to make yourself feel better. As a coach, I think it's also important for us to remember that dopamine can also be addictive. And so, randomly scrolling the news feed, checking how many likes you have, you're getting a hit of dopamine every time. And so that's why I think as coaches, those hosted power hours that the Diamond leaders are hosting, like that's why it's really important, I think, to go to those, especially if you feel that you are scrolling the news feed a lot, because that is an hour of designated time. And you are accomplishing goals during that time. So you're going to be getting hits of dopamine as you're going through that power hour if you are doing what the leader is having you do. And so Yeah, so it's really good. Make sure to go to those power hours. It'll be really helpful to keep you on task. I like going to them because they keep me on task. So, and then serotonin, obviously, as coaches, this is a leadership chemical, so that one really hits home for us. So making sure that you're proud of what you accomplish. You know, being proud of, like, if you help a challenger overcome a barrier, if you help them, like, find a recipe that they love, hitting Success Club, you know, rank advancement, setting up your own challenge group, leading from the front. You know, this is all things to be proud of. And giving shout outs to your downline coaches. You know, recognition is one of our 4 vital behaviors. And so make sure that you make your teammates feel valued and part of the team, and then that will reciprocate and go back to you as well. So, yeah. So the last one is oxytocin, and this is that feeling of friendship and trust. And so obviously, like, a really key component for us as coaches is our team pages and our coach challenge groups, or our challenge groups that we host. You know, this is a place for us to get engaged with other people, and, you know, you can even, like, one idea I came up with is hosting a team event and exercise together, like having a virtual fit club. I mean, that would be really cool. Welcoming new team members in the team pages. You know, even if they're not your person-sponsored coaches, make sure you say welcome to them. Right on your downline coach's post. Don't just like on their posts. Make sure you comment on them, because then they'll feel more like you care about them. And then, again, it just keeps going around and around, like the oxytocin just, like, ping pongs back and forth. Also, many of us have taken the color code test to determine our personalities. If you know what your downline coach's color code or even their love language is, try to coach to them or lead them in that manner, and they will respond more than likely much better, because you are appealing to their love language or their color. And then it's basically just like making everybody else feel like they're part of the team, and then we'll feel a part of the team. So it's really cool. So for coach example, I'm going to share my personal one, because we've probably all had our challenges, but part of my experience in growing as a leader has been making sure that I share some of this kind of stuff. So it's kind of a double whammy for me today, so I can share it with everybody. So I think it was in the month of July, I was in kind of a bad mental place, and kind of my personality, I'm a red, and I like to take care of things myself. I'm not overly vulnerable. I don't like to share when I'm struggling with something. I kind of get tunnel vision and just try to dig down deep and just, like, dive in and figure out what's wrong. Well, that's, you know, cortisol is just going to come whamming in there and taking me down. It did. So I'm just not one to share my struggles. I don't want to be seen as a complainer. And it just finally got to a breaking point where I felt alone, and I just felt like I wasn't a good leader, and I wasn't accomplishing my goals, and I just couldn't figure it out. Well, one day I went live and shared my thoughts on a team page, and I released all my tension. So this was like endorphin city. Like, I cried and just rambled and had no idea what I was talking about, and just rambled, and it was just the most freeing thing I think I've ever done. And what's interesting is I was talking to my sister Lauren about it, and, you know, she kind of pinpointed that I wasn't doing the things that I loved anymore. I was trying so hard to fix what I was not doing right that I stopped doing the stuff that I loved. And so I started doing those things again, like, you know, posting in my team pages, or my team page, and, you know, like working with my downline more instead of focusing so much on what I was doing wrong, you know, coaching again. And things kind of turned around really quickly after that. My social media time was very out of control. I've set limits, and I use a checklist for my tasks. So that's dopamine. And I actually have I carry this little notebook with me everywhere. I write down, if I think of something where I'm going to bed, or if I'm at work and I'm like, oh, I got to do that, write it down. And that way I can go back to it when I cross stuff off. I love crossing things off lists. So I have that. And then celebrating when I did something well. You know, the month after I went live and did all this revamping, I hit Success Club 14. I went over 10 for the first time in my life. And so it's like, it was a very cool and surreal experience. for serotonin, getting more engaged in my own team page and other team pages, sharing best practices and tips. I'm trying to do more one-on-one work with my personally sponsored coaches versus like posting the team page, like trying to make myself seem as a leader to them, but then also still doing stuff in the team pages. So that way, other people still are, if I share, especially the tunnel vision thing, like if you feel like you're focusing so much on your negative stuff, remember to do the stuff you love. Like that is a big tip for you. And then also I tried commenting on downline coaches' posts more consistently and their coaches, if I could get to it, to promote the team environment and to make them feel like I cared about all of their stuff, because I do. And it's really important to make sure they feel that way. And then, like I said, meeting coaches where they're at, using their personality color or their love language to approach them. So I really try to do that a lot with my coaches. So that's a really good tip for you. So the other thing is, like, coaches being real, and I think this is important too, is as coaches, we try to be, we try to share like our happy lives, and it's important for us to share that we do struggle. And why that's important is because it actually, in a way, will release oxytocin to other people and serotonin, because they'll feel like they can step in and help. So like, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I posted, I was like, oh, I'm so stressed out. I don't even know what to do. My kids are crazy and my schedule's nuts. So I'm like, what do you do to, de-stress yourself? Well, then like there's 50 comments that people say, oh, I do this, this, and this. And that makes them feel a part of the community. And like, we all get a little serotonin, oxytocin in that experience. And so I think it's important to share those weaknesses. People trust us a little bit more and are more apt to open up if we, like, on our nightly check-ins. Like, don't feel pressure to fib a little bit. Be honest. Like, if you had a bad day, and like yesterday I had a scotcheroo, and I put it on my check-in post because I'm like, I was really stressed out and I just need something, and I had scotcheroo. You have to share that kind of stuff so your challengers realize that we're not perfect and we struggle with that kind of stuff too. So, where can we get more of these happy chemicals? So to me, team pages and hosting challenges are a gift. Like this is the whole kit and caboodle on where you can get all of these happy chemicals all the time. Like endorphins, if you want to, you can. This is the place where you can let your emotions out, share with your teammates. How are you doing? Dopamine, like it's just, there's a plethora of opportunity for you to share with your teammates and yourself. Like, hey, I hit this goal, or hey, this person hits Best Club for the first time, this person's an Emerald, sharing all that stuff in there. Serotonin, just being a leader in the team pages and also in the challenge groups, just being raw and real, and then the oxytocin, just making people feel like they're part of the community. So that is all about kicking cortisol out of here. So that is the end. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Oh, I definitely have comments. You want to take it off screen share for a second, Lindsay?
Yep.
I love the bright yellow. Yay. That was awesome. Thank you so much for putting that together. And like, think about, there's just so many things. Like, it was hard to be quiet during all that because I wanted to like recap and say so much, but I really like the idea. Like, think of endorphins. Like, I always thought of it like exercise, you get endorphins, but I love that point of like, yeah, when we cry, we do feel better. And if we did just like, if you had a challenger who was struggling and you could just be like, why don't you just go share with the group, and encouraging them to do that, that could really make them feel empowered. Like, I've never thought to do that. Like, it's a great way to think about it. But man, you guys, when we deal these chemicals, like, it's so easy for us to start to give someone endorphins by either letting them pour out their problems or getting them to move. And that leads to dopamine because they take some action. They're like, whoa, that felt good. And then that leads to serotonin, and that leads to oxytocin. Like, it's just a chain reaction. And think about it. I think the biggest takeaway for me is people are on medications for this stuff. Lots of people. I was on medication for this stuff, and it clicked when I was like, my medication says Sarah something or other. And I asked my doctor and she's like, yeah, you're taking serotonin. And I'm like, well, if I'm taking serotonin, and like when I start to think about that more, like when I was in a low, it was like, what's the point? You know, everything seems pointless. Why? I shouldn't do anything. I make no impact. You know, like there's no point of anything is how I felt. And it's like, well, serotonin comes when you help someone. And I remember like whenever I feel that way now, I like go just try and help someone. I remember I talked on the phone to Julianne one day and I felt like I really helped her and it felt so good. I talked to my success partner, Teresa, and I felt like I really helped her and I was like, yes. And people they just take the pill because they don't know. And like literally our challenge groups and just your basic connection with them, maybe they're not even in your challenge group, just your willingness to really connect with them could like literally help them get to a point where they like don't need medication anymore. And when I shared my struggle with anxiety, I was so embarrassed to be this coach and like have these moments where I felt like I couldn't even talk or pick my head up off the pillow. When I started sharing that, it was like endorphins because it felt good to just put it out there. And then man, this is when I realized that more than half the world is on some kind of anxiety or depression medication. And like we could cure so many people in our challenge group. So anyways, like I think that's the biggest thing and that's what makes it so exciting. You don't have to understand it all. Just know that not only are they going to lose weight, they're going to completely change their chemical makeup. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Any questions or comments for Lindsey? I like the part about the miracle maker. Like that's a great thing to also send to a challenger who might be struggling. And I thought that recently, like I'm going to like thinking about how good you're going to feel when you go to bed at night and didn't have ice cream just because your husband did too. You know, like, and I went and bought the ice cream for Chris the other night. I was like, I'm not going to get anything for me. And I actually am so proud of myself for it, but just changing your mindset, like going into it. And it was a hit of dopamine.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Last chance. Questions, comments.
Thank you. I love it. I love how someone else talking.
Go ahead, Carrie. Chat away.
I love how we can take all of this and how you told us to just, that's what we're giving people. That's kind of what we're doing as coaches. We're packaging up these chemicals and giving them the opportunity to get out of that cortisol thing. I didn't know about the cortisol part. I hadn't dug deep like that. Thank you for sharing that piece. I didn't know that, you know, people are stuck and they're like, oh, I can't do this. And I just think it's excuses, but it's really a chemical thing too, hey? So we just need to work with them and continue to convince them to just drink the Shakeology. It's got the ashwagandha in it. It's going to help, right? Awesome.
It's going to be on Carrie's next Snapchat story. Yeah. It's like the whole package. Like people can go work out at the gym, but this is going to give them more. That's going to give them endorphins, not necessarily serotonin or oxytocin. You know, if they don't have that community, they can still work out at the gym, but maybe they come check in with the challenge group, or maybe they're a beach party coach on the team and they can hop on a Zoom like this, you know, just to be surrounded by other like-minded people. So very cool. It just ups what we're doing. Like we're going to get white jackets that say Team Fit and Free, like little scientist jackets. That'll be the next thing. All right. Well, thank you everyone for making the time for being on. And thank you, Lindsey, so much for preparing and sharing and geeking out for us tonight. And definitely a different take on coaching. So cool. Have a great night, everyone.